Well, good morning, everybody. It's approaching the very end of July 2024. I'm Dr. Heldman. I want to welcome you to Tech Talk Education. And in this movie, what we're going to do is delve into some more Linux commands. I want to show you more about the Linux terminal. We're going to use Ubuntu, which we installed in an Oracle VirtualBox virtual machine. They're called a VM. And so this should be informative and a lot of fun. I think that Linux is really cool, and it's really fun to know a lot about it. So let's get started. It should be enjoyable. So here we are in Ubuntu 24.04. This is called Noble Numbat. The crown represents nobility, and this is a numbat. And if you wanted to change this background, let's say that you didn't like the background very well, you wanted to change it, you could just simply right-click like you do in Windows or on the Mac, and you could go to Change Background right here, and you'll get different backgrounds that have been prepared for you. So you can select from these backgrounds. You can also upload other backgrounds that you might enjoy looking at. So let's go ahead and pick this one, and then I'll close this, and boom, there it is. It's done real quickly. All right, so that's that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the terminal window here, and the way that we got it was we clicked this bottom little button here. It's called Show Apps. In previous versions of Ubuntu, it shows up as 9 squares. I click this, and then I just look for terminal. So you can type up here you can type in term, and it'll find it. And you just right-click it and pin it to the dash. Escape gets you out of this selection here. And then I'm going to bring up the terminal. So we're going to do a few Linux commands. I'm going to maximize this, and I'm going to clear the screen. And here we go. Okay, so one of the very first commands I want you to know about is how to install software on a Linux computer without going to the store. So if you go to the Linux store here, they call it the App Center. What happens is you get sort of a shopping environment where you can look for different pieces of software that you'd like to install on your computer. For example, I'll look for games here. And let's see what sort of games we get, and it shows you certain games that you can install. So that's the store, but very frequently what's going to happen is you're going to have to install something manually via the terminal. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So first of all, we're going to use what is called the Advanced Package Tool. It's called APT. I just say apt because it looks like the English word apt, but it's called the Advanced Package Tool. Generally speaking, when we want to download and install software, it's not always the case because you can get yourself in trouble with this if you're installing software that you need to use as a local user rather than root. But generally speaking, we use sudo to install something. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So we type in sudo. Better grab an entry point in here. Type in sudo. That stands for super user do. And what it's going to do is it's going to change me to root user just strictly for this command. If I wanted to change to root user for an entire session, something that I was doing that required administrative access at the root level, what I would do is I would type in sudo su and hit enter. And it prompts me for a password. So I type in my password and hit enter. Now, please notice the difference in the prompt. So initially, I was Bill at Bill TAC VirtualBox. So this first Bill here is the name of my name. That's my username on Linux. This right here is the name of my computer. Now this is a holdover from the old Windows NetBIOS days where every computer still in Windows land has to have a computer name. Macs have computer names. Your phone has a computer name. And the idea here is for interoperational capabilities within different devices. And so it's not a NetBIOS name, I guess, but it technically acts as a NetBIOS name so that Windows knows you are Bill TAC VirtualBox. Well, so we select this when we install Linux. But now that I've typed in sudo su, so I'm saying invoke the sudo command superuser do, and then I want to be superuser. That's what that command is saying. It prompts me for a password, which you will not see. I've had students before that are like, well, it's not taking my password. Yes, it is. It just doesn't show it to you. And look here, it's converted me to root at Bill Tac VirtualBox. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you that there's at least 2 user accounts on this particular computer. There's a user account called Bill, and there's a user account called root. And you can create other users, and you can create groups, and we'll get into more discussion about that later on. Also notice that I am currently in home Bill. So it's gone from showing me the tilde here, meaning this is Bill's home. Tilde means home. Now it says, okay, I'm acting as root, but I'm in the home folder of Bill. And then I also, instead of getting a $sign here, I get a hashtag here. So the prompt is quite different when I'm in as root. Now to get out of this, what you do is you just type in exit, E-X-I-T. And exit actually is a good command to get you out of quite a few things. Exit and Control-C. Sometimes Control-Z will get you out of the different things that you're into that you want to get out of. All right, so here I am, and I want to invoke apt. So I'm going to say sudo apt, and then you have to give it a keyword. So you tell it what you want to do. Well, in this case, I want to install some software. You can remove software, you can upgrade, you can update. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I said sudo apt update like that, what it's going to do is it's going to go out to Ubuntu. It's going to grab updated files that it needs for the file system, the operating system, and update it. But this is not an upgrade. So an update simply updates my current version to files that have been recently changed, configured, and updated. Upgrade upgrades me to a brand new version number. Update takes maybe 30 seconds or a minute. Upgrade could take 2 hours if it's a big distro. And so we don't really care about that. So normally speaking, my counsel to you would be, of a day, you probably need to run sudo update maybe 2 or 3 times a week, just to see what's out there, see if anything's happening. Let's see what this looks like. So I hit this, and then it goes out and it grabs the updates. Now, if this is the very first time that you have keyed in sudo apt today, what it's going to do is prompt you for a password. So I already gave it a password when I logged on as SU. So I did sudo SU, prompts me for my password, I'm in. Now if I run sudo apt update, it's like, okay, I've got the password already in memory, very good, we're just going to go do this. And you can see here that it's giving you some notes. So it hit ubuntu.com, it's getting some files, and you know what, it's updating some things, and we're in good shape. So that's what update looks like. Since you are running Ubuntu 24.04 LTS, long-term support, I don't think that you really need to run upgrade, but if you did, please be prepared to know that is going to take a while. Okay, so that's update and upgrade. Now let's install something. So we're going to do sudo apt install. And last time, in my last movie, I talked to you about the ls command. It stands for list structure. And what that does is show you the files in folders or directories inside the current directory that you're in. Now, we're going to reverse that because there is a game called Steam Locomotive. It's actually pretty cute. And it's called SL. So it's purposely a play, I guess, on LS. I don't know what the thinking was. Who knows what happens with these coders. But anyway, it's called SO. So we're going to install SL like that. It stands for Steam Locomotive. And we hit enter. And it grabs the app and it's going to install it. Now there's some things to look for while you're doing that. You get a progress bar. This is a progress bar that you get in Ubuntu. You're not going to see that bar in Kali necessarily quite like that. A good sign to watch for is when it says processing triggers for the ManDB. That stands for database. And so what it's doing is it's putting in a trigger here, and the trigger means that when I get ready to run this app, it's going to consult the database and find out what I need to be able to run the app. Now that SL is out there, the ManDB, of course, would be the manual page for it, the manual database. Now that it's out there, I can consult the ManDB. So I'm going to clear the screen, and you remember that the command is man. It stands for manual page, and I'm going to look for SL and see what's out there. And it gives me all of the stuff that's out there for SL. All right, well, let's go ahead and invoke this. So I'm going to quit to get out of the man page, clear the screen. I'm going to type in SL, and I get a cool little choo-choo train that goes by. That's it. That's the sum total of SL. Although there are some switches, and you've got to wait for it to cross the screen, so it takes it a minute to get across the entire screen. There are some switches that you can invoke with SL that will make it do something different. So you can't hit escape. I don't think you can hit Control C. Maybe you can. I've never tried it. But if I do a man SL now, I see that I have the TAC A. There's an accident. TAC L shows a little train. TAC capital F shows it to fly. Oh, and there's TAC E, which allows me to interrupt the thing with Control C. So let's try seeing if the train will fly. So what I do is I hit Q to get out of the man page. I type in SL TAC, and then what was it? E for Control C? Shoot. Oh, I should teach you about this while I'm doing this anyway. If you hit your up arrow or your down arrow, Linux, Ubuntu, almost all Linux keeps track of all of your last keyboard strokes. This is a really good way to not have to type in long Linux commands. So if you've gone to the trouble of typing in a Linux command and you're like, shoot, I've got to retype it in, I got something wrong, you can hit the up arrow and get the command back and adjust it and then hit enter again. So I need TAC E, quit. Okay, so I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to say SL minus little e TAC F for flying. And let's see if we can put these two switches together and see if the train will work for us. And sure enough, it does. So that's SL. Why did I show you this? Now I can do a Control C to clear it. Beautiful. That works really good. Control C is, generally speaking, a universal speed key for killing apps that are errant or that you want to get rid of that are doing something wrong. Okay, so what did we learn from this? Well, we did sudo apt install SL. And this is going to be the way that it goes pretty much. Now, if you need to install an app locally on your account, like I want to install it on Bill rather than on root, 90% of the time you're going to install using root. So you'll do sudo and then apt install whatever. Sometimes you want something to run locally as you, and you will not invoke sudo. You will just type in apt install, and it will install into your home folder rather than into the root system. Okay, let's try one more. So we'll do sudo apt install, and we're going to install Cause. Cause is really weird. I taught a class this last summer, and all Cause does is it shows a cow, and the cow says something. So it's a little sign, and the cow says something, and the kids loved it. They thought that was really cool. And I think it's a really good way to learn Linux. So it says, oh, I processed a trigger from ManDB. What that means is when I invoke the manual command, man, and I want to look at Cause, there's an entry in the ManDB database for Cause. So let's go take a look at that. I'll clear the screen, and I'll type in man Cause and hit enter. Now this is really cool. So they show you the switches up here. TAC E is an I string. TAC F is a cow file, a tongue string, a column. I don't know what those mean. And then you can come down here and it'll tell you what all of the different switches means. So you, like TAC F, you can specify a particular cow picture file and stuff like that. And so to use it, I think that, let's see if we can see the use here. Cow say and cow think. That's pretty cute. And you just type in what you want it to say. So if I hit quit to get out of the man page, clear the screen and type in Cause, let's see what we get. We get virtually nothing because it doesn't know what to say. So I'll Control C and I will type in Cause and I'll tell it hello world. By the way, when you're writing code, a lot of times the very first piece of code that you write is hello world. I don't know why. It's just a thing. So in this case, I put it in double quotes here, and I'm going to hit enter. Now it's Calce. Yay! So we install Calce. You can play around with that on your own speed, but all I wanted to show you was that we can use sudo apt install to install different applications. This is really important because it's going to show up time and time and time again as you're reading about you're having a problem with Linux, you are reading about something new that you want to do in Linux, there's some app that you need. It could be that you're not going to be able to go to the store and get it, that you're going to have to go out and install it at the command line. Let's see if that's true. So I'm going to go to the store here, and I'm going to search for Calce. Let's see if we can find Calce here. And I've got dog say, pony say, but I do not have Calce. So that's the idea. The idea is that, you know what, sometimes we're going to have to install things via the command line. Okay, clear the screen. Remember that ls displays a list of folders and files, and we're going to get in and talk a little bit more about these listings in a little later video. But right now, you can see that all of these folders, with the exception of snap here, are proper case. Now, you've got to remember that Linux is case sensitive. So if it says cap desktop, cap D desktop, you have to type in a cap D. Well, what would happen if we wanted to make a different folder? Like we wanted to make a new folder under here. For example, maybe we want to say we want to make a directory called code or something like that. So let's say, and this is very common, that you want to write some sort of a little document, and you want to save it in a different area for an application. So the first thing we'll do is we'll say make dir, and that stands for make directory, and we're going to make a directory called, what we'll call it my apps, for example. Now you've got a couple of choices. You could name it all proper case. You could name it all uppercase. Please don't do that. I can't stand it when stuff is all uppercase like that. Or you can make it lowercase. Now that's the general rule of thumb with Linux. It's generally lowercase. So I'm just going to call this my apps. You could also put in a dash or an underscore. I don't recommend it unless you're really bent out of shape about making sure that the words are readable, which I get. I understand that. But in this case, since it's Linux, we're just going to make this my apps folder. So I hit enter, and I do an ls. And there is the my apps folder right there. And it's lowercase, just like snap, but I have now managed to create a new folder. Well, so what would happen if I wanted to put something inside that folder? Very frequently, you are asked to either modify or change a text file, and I want to show you a new command. So I showed you make dir, I showed you sudo apt install. Let's do this command. So the command is touch. What touch does is it creates an empty text file. This is quite common. You'll see somebody touch and they type in the name of the file that they want to create, and then they edit the file. So it shows up in whatever folder you specify, but it's empty. And then when you get ready to edit it, you can invoke one of several. There are several different notepad editors inside Linux. My favorite is Nano. But you can invoke a Word text editor, and you can edit the file. So let's do that. So let's touch, but what I want to do is I want to put this in the my apps folder. So I'm going to type in my apps / and then I'm going to give it the name of the file to type in. So I'm going to type in hello world like that. So what I'm doing is I'm instructing touch to create a file called hello world. There's no extension on this. Linux doesn't necessarily need an extension like Windows does. Like you could type in .text. Linux doesn't care. If you want to type in .text just so you're uniform across all the platforms, totally fine. Linux doesn't care. You can do without an extension if you want for certain files. Some files have an extension. There's a reason for it. But in this case, since it's a text file, we don't need that. So I'll get rid of that. And then we're telling it to put it into the My Apps folder. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. So we hit enter. If I do an ls, I do not see my file that I put in there. I don't see hello world. Why? Because it's in the My Apps folder. So I could change into My Apps and hit enter. My prompt changes to ~/myapps, meaning that I went from my home into my apps folder, and if I do an ls here, I will see that there's that hello world file. I'm going to go back one folder. There's a real quick speed key to go back. It's cd space ... So to go back one folder is cd space ... The same works in Windows, but there's no space in between the CD and the ... in Windows. But in Linux, you need a space in between the CD and the ... Now another way, let me go back into My Apps. Another way that you could go back home is to just do cd enter, like so. I'll go back into My Apps again, and you could type in cd tilde, although I'm not sure why you would want to when cd enter is just so cool. Now, suppose that we wanted to see what was in the My Apps folder or the directory, but we want to stay inside our home directory here. So what we can do is type in ls/myapps. What that's going to do is we're instructing it to go into the My Apps folder, find all the files that are in there, and then list them out. And we're going to list them in short format. So we hit enter, and there's our hello world again. You could do the same thing with Etsy. So you could say cd space. Now, since we're telling it to show us the contents of, not cd, ls, since we're telling it to show us the contents of the Etsy directory, what we need to do is put in the / key because we have to absolutely address it. I can get away with relative addressing here because it's beneath my home folder. I cannot get away with relative addressing when I want to jump from this folder, this directory, to another directory. So I have to type in /Etsy to get it to do what I need it to do. And I hit enter, and boom, there we go. Very good. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's edit that hello world file. So I'm going to type in nano. Now there are tons and tons of text editors that are available for Linux. One of them is called Vi, or Vim. It stands for Vi Modern. It's called the Vi editor. I'm not a huge fan of Vi, but I'll teach you how to use it later. There's Nano. Kali has one called Mousepad. There are several others. Gedit, for example. So there's a lot of different editors. And if your favorite editor doesn't exist, you can try and install it. So you could say sudo apt install gedit, for example, and get it to run. But Nano comes natively. Vi and Nano come natively with Ubuntu. So we're going to nano myapps / hello world. We have to think about what we're doing. So we're telling it that we want to edit the hello world file, which is located in the My Apps directory. So we hit enter, and there we are. Now we're in Nano. Nano's super weird. So what's happening here, I like it because you can freeform type. So I can type in, for example, hello world, bang, bang. And then I can come down here. It's fun to learn about Linux. Bang, bang. Okay. Next, what you see is down on the bottom, you have these weird keystrokes here. So there's a hat. That little hat is called a caret. It's spelled exactly like the caret in a diamond ring, C-A-R-E-T. And it's an uppercase 6. And what it is a symbol for the control key. So what Nano is telling you is that it wants you to issue control and then some command. Also notice here that I have a star up here, which tells me that, hey, I have not saved this thing. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and the way that you do is you write it out. So you do Control O here. So I type in Control O, and it says, oh, what file name do you want me to write it out to? And it assumes that we want to write out my apps hello world, which in this case is correct, but you could pick a different file if you wanted to. That's totally fine. And I hit enter. So it's written it out. It says that it wrote 2 lines down here on the bottom. And then to exit Nano, I do Control X, and that gets me out of Nano. Now if I want to look at what I wrote, I can type in ls myapps/hello world. And it'll show the listing here that it exists there, but it doesn't show me how big it is. Now there's 2 ways that I could figure that out. First of all, if I wanted to find out how big the file is, I would just do ls-tac-l myapps hello world, and it would give me information about the file size here, and it's not very big, it's 46 bytes. And we'll cover this other info here, these 10 bits later on. And then if I wanted to have it type out what the file contains, I want to look at what's inside the file, I would type in cat. So cat stands for catalog. It's a weird term. You'll get used to it really easy. Cat means display the contents of a file, and it'll display binary, it'll display regular text. It's just happy to do either one. And then you type in the path. So this is called the path to the file. So you're telling it to go into the myapps directory, find the hello world file, which I misspelled, and then cat it out. Tell me what the contents is of that file. Enter. Beautiful. That works very well. Okay. Well, so what if we wanted to move this to my documents rather than have it in my apps? So if I do an ls, I find out that my documents are called capital D documents. So I can copy this thing or move it. So Linux knows about both the copy command, which is CP, and the remove command, which is RM. Well, what if we wanted to just go, and the move command, which is MV. What if we wanted to just copy this over to the documents folder? You would type in copy from the my apps folder, the hello world file, to documents. And again, I can use relative addressing because this is all happening inside my home folder. So we're telling it to take the whole hello world file found inside my apps, copy it to the documents folder. Let's see if this works. Boom. And if I do an ls documents, and there it is. So that's really cool. So that's the copy command. The move command takes and moves it from one folder to another. So you would do the same thing. So I'll hit my up arrow, and I'll come back here, and instead of saying copy, I'm going to say that I want to move, like that. Now I don't know what it'll do because we already have a copy of it there. Let's see if it does it. And then I'll hit my up arrow and do an ls documents. There it is. It moved it over. And then if I do an ls on my apps, let's see what's in there now. Nothing. Why? Well, because I moved that file. Suppose that I want to remove the hello world from the documents folder. So you type in rm, and then you do documents, type in capital documents, capital D, and you can give it wildcards here. Like if we knew that we had several files in there that said hello, had the word hello in them, we could say hello star. And the star is a wildcard that means delete everything that starts with 5 letters HELLO. So it's very similar to the Windows command structure with these wildcards. There's 2 of them. There's a star, and then there's a question mark. And question mark is saying, you know what, if you find anything that starts with HEL, and we don't care what happens there in that position, delete it. But we could just say remove documents hello world. and that is the same as a delete in Windows. By the way, this word cat here means to print out the contents of a file. In Windows, it is not cat. In Windows, it is the type command, T-Y-P-E. However, Windows PowerShell is extremely Linux friendly, and if you learn these Linux commands, you may find that you can issue the same command inside PowerShell. Some commands don't work inside PowerShell, but the majority of them do. It's pretty interesting how Microsoft has gotten really Linux friendly. Let's see if we did this. So we can list documents, and there is nothing there any longer. Okay, now one last command, and we'll call it a day for today, and the command is called present working directory. Present working directory. We hit enter, and it tells us that we are in the home bill folder or directory. And finally, you could always man, so the remove command, rm, can remove a directory as well, but there's some special switches that you have to add. It can remove files or directories, and there's a switch that you have to type in to get it to remove a directory, and it's this TAC-R. Now, what this is really cool, because a lot of these directories wind up getting really, really big, and so this will just take everything right out of there. TAC-D removes an empty directory. TAC-R recursively removes all the files and then the directory. I'm going to quit to get out of the man page, and I'm going to wish you adieu, and thank you for listening. Please refer this to your friends. If you have friends that are wanting to learn Linux, Linux is really cool. I love it a lot. I was dragged into it kicking and screaming, but now that I know a lot about it, I like it a great deal. And I would love it if you would subscribe to my Tech Talk Education channel. We don't just talk about Linux, we talk about all kinds of subjects. Linux is very, very important though, so that's why I focus on it. And maybe subscribe, and you're welcome to leave comments. I've had a couple of people leave comments. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. We'll talk to you on the next video. Have a good day.